All right. Hello. Welcome to the Reanimate This podcast once again. And Meredith's back, and I have with a new host of this podcast, Alex. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Alex Beige. My pronouns are they, them. I am a web developer, like freelance web developer and web designer. And also I'm a playwright. So I write short plays, mostly comedy, and I'm in New York City.
So cool. I would love to hear your perspective then on Thoroughbreds, since it started out as a play.
You cannot hesitate. The only thing worse than being incompetent, or being unkind, or being evil, is being indecisive.
Okay. Shall we?
What am I going to tell my dad?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So, yes, we are going to talk about... So, it's directed by a playwright, Cory Finley. And this was his directorial debut. He never had a filmmaking training before.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I heard, his crew members and cast members ready. And on the first day of the production, he just went in and with a full confidence just start directing actors.
Also notable for being Anton Yelchin's last film.
So I'm sorry if your girlfriend would rather...
She's not my girlfriend, all right? She's my fucking sister.
All right, well, whatever she is an intelligent, being who can make up her own mind about the people she wants to hang out with. Am I wrong?
What the fuck is he even doing here?
Whoa, what the fuck am I even doing here? I am providing you all with early drug experiences that you will forever cherish. That's what the fuck I'm doing. And who the fuck are you?
You went to school with my cousin.
Okay, great. What's
This
his name?
guy did fucking jail time. Statutory rape. He fucked someone our age when he was 25.
All right. I was 23, you gorilla-faced dumbass. Hey, put that fucking phone away. You know what? I refuse. Put the fucking phone away. I refuse to stand trial in front of this kangaroo court. Fuck.
Oh, gotcha.
Watching this movie made me miss Anton Yelchin really, really badly. This was an interesting choice to reimagine as an animation because for various reasons, and actually it is also a good opportunity to talk about the idea of adapting a play into an animation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to talk about the plot of this movie?
So it's about two upper class high school girls, played by Olivia Cook, and wow, I know her name, and she's in my head right now. The one that's in everything.
Anya Taylor-Joy?
Thank you. It's one of those things where her name was in my head and it wouldn't come out of my mouth. So yes, Anya Taylor-Joy and Olivia Cook. Olivia Cook has recently been she's recently left a mental health facility after Mercy killing her horse goes wrong, and she discusses a lot about how emotional expression and feeling things is very difficult for her. She has to use what she calls the technique to make herself cry.
Come here. Why do you do this to me, Frank?
Yikes.
Why can't you be honest
What?
with me? As honest as I am.
It's the worst
with you.
fake crying I've ever
Do
seen.
you have to go? I have to go, Paul. I know.
She's
All right, go.
trying.
Go anywhere you like. You can go to blazes for all I care. Paula. Paul.
Look, that's better.
Yes, I know. I'm being foolish.
Actually, that might not even be fake.
It is.
No, look, those are real tears.
She's just using the technique.
The what?
Come on, fix your face. We'll go down to Eddie's and have a
I
drink.
mean, maybe she actually fell in love with the actor. And they're fucking between takes, and it's the last week of shooting, so she knows she has to return home to her loveless 1940s marriage, and...
The technique.
And then Anya Taylor-Joy is she's just left her boarding school, and her mother and awful stepfather are going to be putting her in a boarding school for wayward girls, as it were. And there's a lot of mounting resentment.
We've been having the conversation about next year, and we feel really good about Brookmore. He has a friend who's on the board, and they're really very good.
Brookmore is a place for girls with very severe behavioral issues. How is this even part of the conversation?
That's not true.
If I'm not readmitted, then I'm staying local.
We think you do really well in a supportive environment.
He doesn't want me here.
No, that's not it at all. You know how much effort he puts in every day getting closer to you.
I got admitted into Andover.
You were admitted to Andover because your dad wrote them a check. This is not a conversation. We've already made the down payment.
Between Anya Taylor-Joy's character and her stepfather. And Olivia Cooke kind of mentions, well, why don't you just kill him? Because her character is very interesting in that she doesn't kill indiscriminately. She Mercy killed her horse because her mother didn't want to put him down when he was very sick and very injured and couldn't go on. But it looked more brutal than it was because she didn't know what she was doing. But she was hoping for a swift kill. She makes the suggestion to kill Mark, the stepfather, on the grounds that he does more harm than good to.
You ever think about just killing him?
I mean, no.
Could at least consider it.
No.
Just weigh the pros and cons.
No.
Why don't you consider all options?
Yeah, not like murder.
Yeah, sure, it's outside the box, but you can only get so far thinking how everyone else thinks. Look at Steve Jobs.
What?
I'm just going off what you're giving me. It's a cost-benefit analysis. Seems like you could generate a lot of benefit for a lot of people.
Except I'd spend the rest of my life in jail.
Why are you assuming you get caught?
So they try to hire Anton Yelchin, who is a local ne'er-do-well, to do it and make it look like it just happened in a robbery. But that goes south. So one night, Lily, Anya Taylor-Joy, drugs Amanda, Olivia Cooke, and goes upstairs and kills him herself. And Olivia Cooke eventually takes the blame for it because she wanted to see her friend be free, and it's kind of shown at the end that she's happier in a mental health facility anyway.
Things actually aren't bad here. Food's okay. Staff are generally nice people. The therapists have been working with me to fill in my memories of those missing hours. And it's kind of a fun exercise. I can tell them fucking anything and they'll just write it down and nod. In other news, the old medication of the month club is back in full swing. And the latest ones are making me sleep 14 hours a day and dream constantly. You're in a lot of them. And one of the recurring ones, we're in your living room and I've just drank your drug screwdriver. And you're screaming, asking me why I did it. Asking me why I have a horse's head instead of my face. And I want to tell you that I don't. But I turn to you and I open my mouth and all that comes out is...
And that is Thoroughbreds.
Yes, it's... I don't know, while watching this movie, I reminded of Billy Wilder's movie Double Indemnity. It's like the YA version of Double Indemnity without... well, it does involve murder, but it's murder,
Mhm.
but cover up as a suicide just to get a insurance fraud.
And this
Well, it's
was
more
just
like
to
a very
be rid
very
of an
specific kind of
awful,
insurance
verbally abusive
money.
stepdad. So, different motivation. I really, really like the description of this as a YA double indemnity. That is very perfectly descriptive. And I say this as someone that loves Thoroughbreds. That's why I suggested it. And then I had suggested,
And the director of that movie admitted that he was influenced by film noir such as Double Indemnity. But I must say that if I have to compare that to the Billy Wilder movie and the original novel by James M. Cain, this is a lot. I would say this is a lot more lighter. The ending is a little more bittersweet, whereas Double Indemnity was straight up downer. Like the murder plot went mostly well until someone pointed out the problem. As you may remember from the movie.
What's on your mind?
That broken leg. The guy had a broken leg.
What are you talking about?
Talking about Dietrichson. He had accident insurance, didn't he?
Yeah.
Then he broke his leg, didn't he?
So what?
And he didn't put in a claim. Why didn't he put in a claim? Why?
What are you driving at?
Walter, I had dinner 2 hours ago. And is stuck halfway.
Little man of yours is acting up again, eh?
There's something wrong with the Dietrichson case.
Why, because he didn't file a claim? Maybe he just didn't have time.
Maybe he just didn't know that he was insured.
Thing goes haywire, and then I believe the main character's name of that movie is Walter Neff, and just went back and does that narration. You know, it's like going back where it was started, and then that's how the movie ends. And from what I heard, they filmed the scene where he was executed in a gas chamber, but then it was too dark that they didn't put it in, and that footage was lost forever.
I think that's one of the most accurate summaries I've heard.
It's very much the YA
Thoroughbreds.
double indemnity. So yes, I remember reading a review because it was written and directed by a playwright, it does feel like a play because everything's neatly tied with a bow, and all the open-ended stuff are closed very neatly and all. And not only that, every mise-en-scene is very much, how should I put it, very static. I would say barely any style, like absence of style. It's very direct, very deadpan.
Can you say what you mean when you say style?
Excuse me?
Can you say a bit more about what you mean when you say style? Like I think I know what you mean, but yeah.
It's almost how someone like Stanley Kubrick, staged a scene. It's very objective. Like, you have to watch it without any bias.
Personally, I feel like all of those decisions are thematically appropriate and deliberate because you are dealing with very wealthy Connecticut white people. And that is an incredibly manicured and sterile and overly polished kind of culture. So to me, all of those choices stylistically or anti-stylistically, as you are claiming, felt like that's how the story needed to be told. I don't think that other choices would have necessarily worked. This was a very deliberate choice.
Yes. Okay, to be fair, there are some, how should I put it? There are some compositions that are very unique. Like, I remember, there are some parts, I remember, I think, in chapter 4 when Lily was about to kill Mark. Mark is her stepdad. It's also recalled back to the first time Olivia Cook met Mark for the first time. I'm not sure if you remember that shot, but yeah, it is a very much a similar shot. So there's an interesting juxtaposition there, and I really like the shot of I think Olivia Cook playing a very gigantic chess set in the backyard.
Oh yeah, and the very on the nose but still appreciated fact that she was mostly playing with the knights.
Yeah, there there was that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that it is very much deliberate. I mean, sure, there are like visual symbolism and visual callbacks, but you said it was very sterile, like no, like very much absence of style. Like everything looks mostly clean, and I feel like that's very much one element that came from like a play, that in a sense that it things like that would work probably well in a play setting. So the reason why I brought Alex is because they, being them as a playwright, they probably would give some, in depth into why this could probably work more well in the theater setting and in a play setting. But then at the same time, Alex, what do you think? How do you feel about plays getting adapted into film, and what do you feel do you have an opinion about it? Like,
Yeah.
some annoying things that filmmakers kept when these would probably work better as a theater.
Yeah, no, I think it's I have so many strong feelings about it, because I think it's such a difficult thing to do, to adapt a play to a film and vice versa. Like yeah, I just feel like they have totally different languages. So there are a few things that come to mind first. One is that so much of the playwriting process and the way that you're making decisions when you're writing is about is knowing that the audience is going to be in the room, and knowing that you can rely on that to build tension with the audience. So I had a short play earlier this week where one of the characters was like, "Oh, do you hear that?" And there was this moment where they were trying to decide whether or not something could be heard, and the audience is listening too. And that works so well in the room, but on a screen, it doesn't. That kind of tension doesn't come as cheaply. So whenever I watch a play that has been adapted to a film, I feel like the thing that stands out to me the most, that makes me recognize that, is usually the dialogue. It feels like the dialogue usually takes on a larger role as opposed to the visual language, which may have been part of what you were trying to say, or part of what you were saying when you were mentioning stylistic decisions. But yeah, I think whenever plays get adapted to films, whether or not it's successful, I think is often dependent on whether the director or writer is ready to embrace the visual the visual, what's the word I'm looking for? The visual poetry of film that's kind of absent from theater. Because if you just stage two people talking in a film, it can still work really well, but you're not really using film to its farthest reaches, I would say.
Right, and I remember. Okay, I didn't watch the entirety of the movie, but I remember reading Roger Ebert's review of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. I meant the film adaptation of that Tom Stoppard play, which Stoppard directed by himself, and this is his only film directing credit. And he was very, very much critical of the movie, the movie just having everything that can only work on theater, and still they didn't really fully explore through the medium of film. And now Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead it's an absurdist play, a Beckettian play about a two minor character in William Shakespeare's Hamlet, and who would later get killed. And hence the title Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and it sort of explores a deterministic nature of the theater play and the absence of free will and the absurdity that comes out of it. And when you watch, I thought of something when you watch the typical two people trapped in a room, kind of movie, you sort of noticed a lot of Beckett element.
I mean, that makes sense. He did write kind of the quintessential two guys in a room.
Yeah.
Also, if you've ever seen the movie, not the play, the movie Nothing, that's almost a comedic take on the same thing. It's a just two guys, and by the end of the movie, there is literally no background. It's a fun movie.
That sounds really fun.
It really is, and it's a comedy, but obviously there's an element of what the fuckery in there, just owing to the fact that it's two guys in an increasingly world where things are disappearing and there is nothing.
Yeah, no, totally. And also speaking to that, I haven't seen Nothing, but have either of you seen? Geez, what is that movie? Is it Dogtooth? It's like the movie where. What is that movie where it's like a city and it's like a town and like there are delineations with tape on the ground for the different rooms? Do you know what I'm talking
Dogville?
about?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that one in a previous episode.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, I think of that one as being
in
very.
the November episode, and I'm gonna bring in like an animator who knows about Bertolt Brecht, and we are gonna talk about whether Brechtian storytelling could work in the medium of animation and things like that. So this is a very interesting case where, Dogville is an interesting case where the director used one element from the theatrical elements that could only work in the play, but then he used it to push forward the story or push forward the theme.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I had a playwriting friend recently recommend it to me as like a movie that engages with the medium of theater really interestingly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I hope that you could come over to the November episode, but then at the same time, considering you don't like the theme involving sexual assault, I'm not really sure if I want to make you watch that. Like, I don't want to make you watch that. But that's a long story. I understand that there are like some overlap between the play and filmmaking and film storytelling, and there are many cases where the playwright and they're writing a screenplay based on their own work for the film. Perhaps very most notable example with Tracy Lett writing screenplay for William Friedkin's film adaptation of his works, Bugs and Killer Joe. And
Bug is another really good. Oh, go ahead.
And the most recent one being The Whale. Well, I remember. Okay, I never completed watching the movie Whale with Brendan Fraser, but you could pretty much tell that it was based on a play, considering it's set inside like this one apartment room, and we don't go outside or something. And that movie has a screenplay written by the playwright himself. There's a bit of an overlap, but I mean, sure, it could work. And then there are many like classic movies such as 12 Angry Men where there's nothing exactly wrong with the movie that is set inside like one room. In fact, there are also some movies, well-known movies that set inside of one room, and that is not based on a play, such as there was like one I had in my mind. It just kind of went away, but the Exterminating Angel by Louis Buñuel.
And the aforementioned. Oh, go ahead.
Where the rich upper people, like you would expect from residing in Connecticut, being trapped, like psychologically they cannot leave like this room. Like after they had like a dinner party, they all went inside the room to hang out, but then they overslept, and then they realized that they cannot leave the room for whatever reasons, and they're pretty much trapped forever. So there's that. And why were you trying to say, Meredith?
I was saying nothing wasn't based on a play. And if we're going to also move into at least multiple rooms, but still one set, the first Cube movie was
Also done
really
by
just
Vincenzo
one
Natali.
Yeah, which was really just one set where they to indicate the changes of rooms, just changed up the lights, changed up the settings, and added a couple of set pieces for the traps. Cube is a very, very, very fantastic example of just really using what you've got and low budget filmmaking, but to try and make and it does look much more expensive than what they were really working with, simply because they were very industrious and resourceful with the one set. But I was also going to say that nothing was not based. No, I just said that nothing wasn't based on a play either, and that's still a very claustrophobic piece. But I was going to say that Thoroughbreds, because of because of the fact that it was based on a play, and you mentioned Bug earlier as well, which I enjoy the play and I enjoyed the movie based on it. A lot of these movies are very claustrophobic. And it's by design. I think that a claustrophobic play lends itself well to making a claustrophobic movie. And that was also why for the animator for this one, I chose Satoshi Kon, specifically with looking at Perfect Blue, because much like the way that Thoroughbreds operates, where there's entire scenes where there's no dialogue. It's told completely in sound design and facial expressions, including Mark's murder, which we would get to later, but that was so effectively staged. But I feel like, especially with Perfect Blue, Satoshi Kon is very well suited for these long stretches of time with no dialogue and the sense of confinement and claustrophobia. I also felt I'd also considered Gendy Tartakovsky, but then I also realized that there's better movies suited for him, because obviously he's very good at no dialogue as well. Look at something like Samurai Jack, where so much of it is told just visually. Yeah, I wanted to throw it out there that was the animator I chose for this, specifically for that sense of claustrophobia. And I feel almost like, to some extent, if Perfect Blue was ever going to be a stage play, there's ways you could make something like that work. You'd have to pare down the amount of sets, but I almost feel like you could make it work.
Right.
Yeah, I love Satoshi Kon so much, and I think Perfect Blue is a really interesting example to me for like claustrophobia, because like it's been a while since I've seen it, but like usually when I think of claustrophobia, I'm thinking about like something like Cube, or something where it's more so like there's this specific location that we're kind of stuck in. But when I think of Perfect Blue, I totally agree that it's claustrophobic, and it feels like it's also because like we're trapped in her mind. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's it's not just the claustrophobia is not just a physical space, like you said.
Yeah.
It's mind, but it's also the world around her and the pressures of being a pop idol that is becoming an actress, that's going through basically like her Disney girl phase, where she's like, I'm not the good girl anymore. I'm doing rape scenes.
This is Mima's last performance with Chan,
who desired to become an actress.
I really hope that I can entertain you just the same as an actress.
But sometimes aspirations can be deadly.
I'm always watching Mima's room.
In the world of make-believe,
this is when Mima proves herself.
The price of fame.
Don't worry, Mima, it'll be all right.
May not be worth the cost of identity.
Where did this come from? How do they know so much?
Innocence is lost. Dreams become nightmares. And privacy no longer exists. Where everything you do can be seen by everyone. And those you trust are really those you should fear. Your life no longer belongs to you.
Excuse me.
I think that his sensibilities that he showed in this, and also I'll say Millennium Actress as well, but I'm not going to refer to that one as much because that's more sci-fi, whereas Perfect Blue is much more terrestrial in the same vein as Thoroughbreds. Anything fanciful is pretty much going on in her head. Otherwise, this is a story that can take place in our world. It's not there's no sci-fi elements. Go ahead.
I thought the sci-fi one was Paprika.
Oh my God, you're right. I'm sorry. This is what happens when I record in the morning and I only have like half a cup of tea. Yes, you are correct. Paprika is the one that I am thinking of.
Paprika is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
You have very good taste.
Yeah, Paprika is cool, even though I would say the movie is somewhat better than, from what I heard, they say the movie was better than the book. This is one of the case. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Anyway, speaking of which, yeah, I mean, which is I initially, so actually the cool, what I like about doing this podcast like this, like I finally get an excuse to watch like movies that I never seen before. Like this is like this podcast at least gave me some excuse to watch Perfect Blue, and I really loved it. I as a fan of like hyper stylized thriller, like psychological thriller, this is very much up in my alley. Like I love like De Palma movies and like some of like Argento movies. This is very much how you, and also movies that are very cinephilic. Like Perfect Blue is very, I mean, from the first time I think like more than a decade ago, someone already recommend that movie to me because he described it as, that person described the Perfect Blue as anime Hitchcock, and once I watched it, I was like, this is more of an anime De Palma. Like, Brian De Palma was a huge, like many have call him like the successor to Alfred Hitchcock and or contemporary Hitchcock, because he more like expanded Hitchcock's filmic vocabulary and filmic grammar, and does his own like social satire, and then like adding more like sex and violence that Hitchcock couldn't do due to the Hays Code. This is from the words of Quentin Tarantino.
But one of the reasons, in particular, why I responded to De Palma in a way that I didn't to Hitchcock is, and in particular, it was I'd said in the piece, I did feel the 50s morass of filmmaking held him down. Hitchcock really couldn't do what left to his own devices, I think he would have wanted to do. By the time he could do it in the late 60s and the early 70s, he was still a little too old. But if he could have gone where he wanted to go in the early 60s and through the 50s, he would have been a different filmmaker. Well, by that token, Brian De Palma was able to go where he wanted to go. He was able to explore the artistic minutia of the set pieces, of the violence. And people will say Hitchcock dealt with satire of his times, and maybe to some degree in the 40s he did, and maybe even in the 30s. I don't see it that much in the 50s. But De Palma, as much as his films were, as much as they were the violent set pieces, as much as they were the suspense set pieces, as much as they were the cinematic set pieces, i.e. 360s, i.e. long takes, i.e. split screens, and all that kind of fun cinema stuff that he did, was a social satire.
Hitchcock probably would have, were it not for the Hays Code, which is why I feel like describing it both as Hitchcockian and De Palmian is accurate. I think you can make a case for both. Both can be true at the same time.
And which is kind of strange, because you brought up Perfect Blue, because Perfect Blue is very, being a very multi-layered, psychological thriller. It also comments on the art of performance and also self-reflection about the visual storytelling, whereas Thoroughbred very much doesn't really comment much on like filmmaking or anything like that. It's very.
It does.
I mean, it's very one note. I mean, that's not a my snide comment on it. I meant that in a very neutral way. It's very one note, and for right reason, since it's mostly focused on like one goal. And what you
feel like
what you think is it does it does have that self commentary on the cinematic storytelling. What do you think? I
was gonna say it doesn't. The movie itself doesn't. It's not self-referential. It's not meta. It's not a self-commentary. But I do feel like on a meta level, while it's not a commentary, there is some overlap between the fact that it is a play that became a movie, directed itself by the playwright. But I also, like I said, I didn't feel like I didn't choose Satoshi Kon for thematic reasons. I chose him for storytelling reasons, because I feel like the two scenes especially that he would have absolutely, completely just knocked out of the park, making like iconic cinematic history along the lines of Mima in the bathtub, is the scene where no dialogue, where Lily, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, is brushing her teeth, walks over to her computer and asks a classmate to send the photos of Amanda, Olivia Cooke's dead horse. She goes back to brushing her teeth. You hear the little bloop, bloop, bloop that messages are coming in. You never actually see the photos. You just see the back of her computer. When she hears the bloop, she comes out, and you can tell the moment that she sees it because of the changes in her face. And that's the whole scene. There's no words. The other one that I'm thinking of is specifically Mark's murder, where the whole time you only see Amanda passed out on the couch after being drugged and being told that she was drugged and chugging her drink anyway, voluntarily putting herself to sleep. You only hear Lily go upstairs. There's the constant thumping of Mark's rowing machine. And you don't hear any screaming. You just hear a change in the rowing machine. It becomes much more erratic. You hear some like sick thumping noises, almost a little wet, and then you hear a body falling to the floor.
It's very much that elevator scene in Perfect Blue.
Huh? What the? Hello, is anyone there? Hmm? Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the reason, so like I said, the reason why I chose him wasn't because the storylines are similar. I mean, it's really quite superficial in that it's a thriller and there's some murder and there's some psychology involved, but it's the fact that scenes like that they are they're very, 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 very technically difficult to pull off. And he is a strong enough storyteller in terms of staging a scene and visualization and um, audio engineering and sound design to where those two scenes in particular would become iconic in his hands.
Yeah, he definitely could do very subtle storytelling, but actually, you also keep in mind that he's also very versatile visual storytelling, and I mean versatile like he could do subtle scenes, but he also could do very over the top or very excessive scenes. Like you've seen Paprika, and you also seen the photographer's death in Perfect Blue. The murder scene was very over top and also very symbolic, very maximalist. It was very much complete contrast with the elevator death.
Yeah, and then you will have that maximalism in, for example, Mark's house. The house that Lily lives in is a Connecticut mansion that's spotless. It's loaded down with decoration, very ornate. I think that stylistically and storytelling wise, something like this would absolutely be in his wheelhouse. So that's why he was chosen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the example you just gave, Meredith, of Mark's death, like brought me back to what you were saying earlier about like claustrophobia in theater, making it a good candidate for like film adaptations. Because like I think like in a theater sense, when I think of that murder scene, like if I'm writing a play and I want a murder scene, and just like knowing what that takes from like an on-stage perspective, if there's any way I can do it off stage and it still be like tense, I'll go for that. So I feel like I feel like theater often lends itself to showing those like just showing those character reaction moments or like lack of reaction moments on stage. Sometimes just like out of sometimes it can emerge from just like a convenience factor and then like become something greater and more tense. But yeah, the claustrophobia thing stuck with me.
Alex, I would love to recommend a play to you. If you ever are lucky enough to see it. I was so fortunate to get to see the world premiere of it. But it's called Let Her Rip, and it's about the Jack the Ripper murders. And it all takes place in one room. And you never see a murder on stage.
Wow.
And it is incredibly claustrophobic. Like when I watched it afterwards, I was like, this needs to be a Pulitzer winner. Just because I think the way that it was staged was brilliant. I think the way that it was written was brilliant. I think that just getting to know you from this episode, that would be probably to your sensibilities, especially learning how to handle something like a murder off stage to create tension and claustrophobia and fear. And sometimes how what we don't see can be scarier than what we do.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds super interesting. Can you say a little bit more about like how the murders, just how that play can even happen in one room? Like I'm kind of blown away by the premise.
I don't want to spoil anything. So understand that I am giving the the capsule review about because I don't want to get too far into spoiler territory because it is way more effective to go in only knowing the basics. But it focuses less on Jack the Ripper himself and more about what it's like to be a woman in Whitechapel at that time, particularly involving the unionization of a lot of the women that were working in factories at the time. The way that society considered sex workers disposable, or that they considered even poor women who weren't sex workers as sex workers for the sake of the police investigations, because it was just easier to be like, she was a prostitute, we don't have to do anything about it. So it focuses on 3 women, one who is a widow, one who is an Irish immigrant, and one who is a Black woman, and the differences in their experiences when it comes to class and race in Whitechapel, as well as labor rights. So it makes, and it only takes place in the apartment that they share together.
So it's the one like it's a different side of a same coin with Alan Moore's From Hell. You know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the graphic novel From Hell. It's Alan Moore. It's Alan Moore's take on like Jack the Ripper, like true crime story, except he kind of goes into a more conspiratorial way, and well, more like a speculatively. Is that a word, speculatively? And anyway, he kind of speculates this whole conspiracy involving the royal family and such. It's
it's definitely not that.
Yeah,
it is,
like I said, it's a different side of a same coin. Like it does kind of goes into sociology of Victorian England, and
and this is very, like I said, this focuses more on his victims, and notably, there's only 3 characters in the play, and Jack the Ripper is not one of them.
I love that.
Yeah, I think you'd like I said, I've been talking up this play because it absolutely just wrecked me in the best possible way. And it's one that I really would love to see like blow up at stages across the US, if not the world, and really get some literary attention because it is incredibly masterful.
This is like a bit of an aside, but like sometimes when I'm writing plays about like really difficult topics like racism or like even personal traumatic events, it feels so difficult to balance like wanting to talk about this important thing, but also not like reducing it to like spectacle or like I don't know, like usually when people do a piece about Jack the Ripper, it's about Jack the Ripper, and even if he's like the bad guy in it, it's still kind of like glorifying or like kind of spectacleizing it. So I like when you mention the premise of this play, I'm like really excited by that because I think it sounds like a really interesting approach to making sure that that you can like talk about that story without like it also just being like kind of being like more fun than it should be, maybe.
Yeah, it was not at all lurid.
Yeah.
At all. When it does mention sex work, it's very, very, very frank about it versus, ooh, this is taboo and sexy. It was very much a, some of this is for survival. Some of this is because, some of the more like quote unquote, like high class, they don't necessarily like it, but they prefer it because it's more money, it's survival, and they have a little more autonomy in their client. It's extremely, extremely nuanced. And I thank you for giving me a chance to talk it up here. Satoshi Kon would also adapt Let Her Rip very well, I think. And I think if Cory Finley were to ever do more film work, he would probably be a pretty good director for a film adaptation of it as well.
Yeah, I could see that.
Totally.
It's a very minimalist presentation. At least that's what I'm being, and from what you said, it's very much. I get that. I get the impression that it's a very minimalist approach to the Jack the Ripper case.
Minimalist, but it is in the set piece at least. Like I said, it only takes place in one apartment.
So when I okay, sorry for changing the subject, but when I said Satoshi Kon was very versatile, he could set aside his own cinephilia and just direct a very straightforward comedy as seen in Tokyo Godfather, and that's what I'm very impressed most about him. Like, I'm not sure if any of you have seen Tokyo Godfather.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very straightforward Christmas comedy. It's just involving some, like, heavy subject matter, homelessness, being discriminated as a sex worker, as a, queer in contemporary Japan. But it has a lot more like a lot happier ending, like typical happier, like Christmas movie ending, like oh fuck, I forget. Anyway, so I while watching his watching Perfect Blue, Millennium Accurate, Tokyo Godfather, I keep thinking I really keep wondering what kind of movie he would later make if he didn't have cancer. I heard that he was working on a sort of a fantasy adventure movie involving robots, but it never got finished, and it will never be. It was on hold perhaps forever. But I keep thinking I want to see Satoshi Kon making anime about making anime. I mean, it very much it reminds me of Fellini, like Federico Fellini with 8.5. Like it's a very self-reflective movie about filmmaking and all. And he already made three movies that involve directing a live action movie. And I'm kind of surprised that he never tried doing a live action movie. And from based on my research, it's just that he wasn't interested in it, which is fine. But I would like to see him making a movie about what it's like being in the anime industry. And I know that there are several other anime series and movies that about making anime, very recently. There's one called Shirobako and keep off your okay, hold on. Keep off.
Another one that
keep
comes
your
to
hands
mind
up
is
Eizoken. Yeah, keep your hands up Eizoken, which is about a high schooler making an anime show.
Did you see Look Back by any chance?
I heard it's really good. I know that it's about what it's like being a mangaka or like a high schooler trying to wanting to make manga. Anyway.
Yeah, it's just one of the first that came to mind when you mentioned recent works about art making in the anime manga space.
Right. Yes. And yeah, it's kind of sad to see. It's sad that Satoshi Kon would never had any chance to make that kind of thing. I mean, since
beautiful was it that we did get to enjoy what he made.
There are barely any animated works based on a play. I aside from children's stuff based on William Shakespeare's. Remember Romeo and Juliet? That gnome animated movie with Elton John, I think producing. I think it's a Romeo and Juliet with gnomes.
I'm scrambling my brain to try and think of anything animated that's based, and I'm sure it exists, and I'm not aware of it.
And there's a independent animated movie with Seal, and also based on Romeo and Juliet called Romeo and Juliet Seal with a Kiss. And what they both have in common is that they have that they live happily ever after ending instead of Romeo and Juliet both, spoiler, killed or they killed themselves.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on the fluffification of Romeo and Juliet that are not appropriate for this episode, not because they're wrong or bad, but because it would be a tangent. But yeah, big and I mean, I understand that stuff is for remixing and playing with, but the fact that Romeo and Juliet has been seen as the ultimate romance in our current lexicon, it does kind of bother me a little bit.
Well, teenage romance, like very naive teenage romance, that goes very horribly wrong. That's perhaps the best way I could describe the Shakespeare play, and then actually I have like several like ideas for animated feature that are also based on a play, and I could probably share with you all. And one of them is I wanted to like adapt Titus Andronicus into
Titus
like,
Andronicus
a very
would lend itself
experimental
so
animated
well
feature.
to animation.
Well,
Tell me more.
Yeah, and I mean by experimental animation, and I mean like it's very meta. Like it's about like it's set during the audio editing J here. This is where I elaborate my experimental and metafictional take on William Shakespeare Titus Andronicus. Even though I've shared my idea with everyone a couple of times in a public setting, however, I just want to cut that part out because it's just not particularly relevant to what we are discussing on this episode.
Oh my god. I need to watch this the day it releases. That sounds so fun. And I am so here for it.
And it's perhaps the most yeah, it is very depraved, like you would expect from like Gaspar Noé movies.
Titus Andronicus. You have to make it depraved. Yes. That's the whole point.
And I don't know. I partially got inspiration from someone's comment how Disney would never do tragedy. Like they Disney-fied Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is a very tragic novel, and that I was very inspired like that. How Disney's so afraid of doing tragedy.
Speaking of just like a side note, I did actually really like Julie Taymor's Titus Andronicus movie.
That's a really
that was
good
really, really, really good. Jessica Lange was so great. Love that movie.
Yeah, I could share you the document, my brainstorming document to you after this podcast.
Oh, please do.
Okay, back to the Thoroughbred crossing over with Perfect Blue. So, yeah, I mean, I could see, since you elaborate a lot, I could see where you're coming from. Because initially I was confused because Satoshi Kon's stuff are very subjective. Like, he relies on subjectivity, he relies on ambiguity or at least he used ambiguity to withhold the main answer. Whereas Thoroughbred refused to be subjective for good reason. And that's where I feel like the styles together clashes too much.
See, I disagree. Because I do think that there is a degree of subjectivity in the characterizations of the leads, like Amanda and Lily, the focal points, because especially Amanda. Amanda operates on her own moral code. It is a very unique to her moral code, but she still follows it. But she also describes herself practically as some kind of sociopath who struggles to emote, who struggles to feel things, who is constantly numb and to some extent, in some ways, seeking novelty. And yet Lily, who is presented as the more driven one and the one that has a a little more emotional intelligence is the one that ultimately ends up killing her dad. It does raise a lot of questions about archetypes and how we view mental health and mental illness, and what is a sociopath, what is a psychopath. Well, I mean, I think medically they're almost the same thing. So I think there is, while there is not story ambiguity, there is character ambiguity, particularly in the way that we view morality. The fact that Amanda's moral code about killing, she would never like just kill indiscriminately or randomly. In one instance, it's because the horse is dying and she was hoping to give him a swift death. And people didn't understand that that's what she was trying to do. They just immediately labeled her as a crazy person trying to kill a horse, when she saw it as something loving and compassionate because she didn't want him to suffer. She saw Mark's murder as something similar. She didn't want her friend to continue suffering under this. He is verbally abusive. And you see one moment where he like grabs her wrist and shakes it before pulling back, which kind of implies that he's not above eventually maybe physically hurting her or her mother. The way that he speaks to her mother is appalling. While traditional morality and, admittedly my morality would be like, that's not necessarily grounds for killing. You can also there's still a logical through line in that still asks questions about our sense of what's right and wrong, and who is right and who is wrong, and hiding what kind of person you are versus, the more honest person was considered the more crazy person. That's something to think about too.
There was a scene where Mark shouted at Lily's mom, like, "What language are you speaking?" Like I don't know, like she's keep asking, like, "Are you okay?" or what or what. I was thinking like,
I'm fine.
Honey, you can't go in looking like that.
I'm fine.
Let me just
I'm
fix
fine.
it.
Ow. Are you gonna make me repeat myself?
Don't do
Are you gonna make me repeat myself? I said I'm fucking fine.
I was just trying to help.
Do you speak English? Or am I gonna have to stand here all day like a fucking robot repeating myself? I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine.
this guy is too white to be Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
Like, I don't know, that thing in Pulp
It's
Fiction.
also
like,
a little
what
different
country are
because
you from?
in Pulp Fiction, he's not yelling at his wife.
What does Marcellus Wallace look like? What? What country you from? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what? What? English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
I was like, this guy is...
That is very different context.
I know. I don't know. I was like watching this. I made a joke like, this guy is too white to be Samuel L. Jackson. And then another guy kind of like who joined with me said like, and he's not that cool.
So point being though, I do think that there is thematic ambiguity and that it does raise a lot of questions, even if the storyline itself plays straight.
Right. And I think that also says something to its origin from theater. Because I think like one of the benefits of film, animation and live action, I think like because of camera angles and the kind of effects you can produce, maybe they lend themselves to, I think they're capable of greater narrative ambiguity. But I think in theater, most of that ambiguity does come from like the characters themselves or their motives or like their like the social context they find themselves in. So yeah, I think maybe part of the difference in ambiguity we're seeing, at least in my head, I think it's partially because it comes from theater.
Actually, there's like one movie I thought of that is not based on a theater play, but it also plays around with the narrative ambiguity and still continues to play with ambiguity even when they gave an answer. There's this Austrian movie called Goodnight Mommy, and Goodnight Mommy is about a twin boy thinking that their mother, who just got plastic surgery, is the fake one and an imposter. So, and that's where the conflict began, because her personality isn't the same as the one they know of, and in the third act they put her in a hostage situation, like the young twin boys putting an adult woman in a sort of a hostage situation. Like they tied her up. At one time they stick her on the floor with a super glue. One of the I don't want to spoil things, but then there was like one recurring mystery, like, is she an imposter or is she their actual mother? And she gave it like a sort of an answer to one of the questions that was like, did the movie raised? And that changed. that gave them like very interesting perspective. However, shortly after that, they still kept the ambiguity going, and they had this very ambiguous answer. Like, and more like gave it a very ambiguous ending, and that's what I like about it. And you should all see that movie, Goodnight Mommy. It's really good. And don't watch the American remake. The American, from what I heard, the American remake just straight up gave the answer and completely abandoned the ambiguity, which is kind of like, oh,
I'm about to say something possibly controversial here.
There's more things you can do with it.
I don't think that Perfect Blue, by the ending, is ambiguous.
You're lying. There's no way Mima Kirigoy would be here of all places.
Well, maybe she's just a look-alike.
No, I'm the real thing.
I think that it has a much more straightforward ending. It just, and I'm saying this as someone who loves the movie. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered wanting to talk about it. I don't want to talk about movies I don't like. I want to talk about things I love. But we know that she's having a mental breakdown through the movie. We know that her manager is the one behind the murders and is the imposter. We know that she suffers from we know these things. We know that she worked with Mr. Me-Mania, and we know that a lot of the more hallucinogenic, fanciful elements were due to stress and lack of sleep, and what's weighing on her, going from being a pop star to a serious actress in all caps. I don't think that it ends ambiguously. I think that the lead up to it being a part of the thriller genre does need to have ambiguity, because it keeps the story moving on and it keeps us wanting to know more and wanting to see things being solved. But I don't think that I think that the ending is much more straightforward.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I believe that's also Satoshi Kon's intention, from what I read, and he pretty much straight up admitted that
Exactly.
It's never meant to be ambiguous.
You are not wrong that it does play with ambiguity, because that is the nature of a psychological thriller. But it does end very straightforward. Just like I think that while the ambiguity in Thoroughbreds is not in the story, but in the characters, because I think that it's a very character-driven story, just like Perfect Blue is a very character-driven story. I think there's more plot to Perfect Blue, however. And because of that, you can get some ambiguity in both plot and character, whereas Thoroughbreds is very, very, very much character versus plot.
Yeah, speaking of which, last night I watched Femme Fatale by Brian De Palma, which I really liked. And that also plays along with the ambiguity. Like, and much like Perfect Blue, it also has a what the heck of a dream sequence. Like, I'm not gonna spoil too much, but it does have there was moments like, oh, it turns out to be dream all along. Actually, that's a recurring feature in Brian De Palma movies, like Raising Cain. Like, has a series of scenes that character wake up from the dream, and then turns out that was also a dream, and that was also a dream,
I was just
etc.
about to say that. Yeah.
And if you remember the ending.
Which,
Carrie.
incidentally,
the ending of
Satoshi
Carrie.
Kon also would have done a banger Carrie.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, he really Satoshi Kon
I
sure
appreciate about
likes
him
Brian De
too is that
Palma.
he very, very, very happily and wears a lot of his influences on his sleeve. I always really appreciate when creators do that.
Yeah, and when he isn't, he's still doing that very well. I've seen in Tokyo Godfather. Well, okay, that movie was that movie is like a, I think, John Ford movie homage. Well, no, it's actually loosely based on a Western movie starring John Wayne. At the same time, it is not exactly about the nature of filmmaking or visual storytelling. It's just straightforward comedy that is just based on like this very, very old Western movie that not many people are familiar with unless you're a huge fan of John Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck John Wayne.
One thing that occurred to me when finding out about Thoroughbreds is I was surprised. So I'd never heard of it, and I was kind of surprised by it, like thematically, because I feel like the buddy comedy starring girls was like, in my head, that kind of started with Booksmart. Like, I felt like Booksmart was a huge first in that, particularly for like younger generations. And I feel like in being exposed to Thoroughbreds, I realized that there were other precursors that I wasn't aware of.
I believe there's some like female buddy comedy movies like made during the 90s, with like occasionally comes up in 90s as well.
Thelma and Louise, which is not necessarily a comedy, but still buddy movie. It's not very well received, but there's Desperately Seeking Susan. I'm not really a fan of that.
And I believe there's this movie called Dick, which is
there was also
like
one
two young fangirls of Richard
recently
Nixon
by
or
one of the
something.
Coen brothers that was that I really wanted to see, whose name I can't escape. But you're right. The fact that we are sitting here having to think of things shows how many more we need.
Right.
Oh wait, there's like one movie. It's not a comedy, but it's actually more closer to thematically with, well, whatever the Satoshi Kon's oeuvre than Thoroughbred. It's called Bound.
Oh yeah,
Bound by the Wachowski.
Yeah, was that the?
And that also has a lot of Hitchcock elements.
Yeah, but like I said, we're having to like scrap our brains to think of it. And I feel like anytime you have to scrap your brains to come up with something means that there's not enough of it.
Right.
I agree. Oh wait, there's like this old Czechoslovakian movie called Daisies. I'm not sure. I've never seen it, but I do know that it's sort of like a social satire comedy that involves surrealism and involves like two women with a same name. So there's that. And actually, the person I'm planning to have on happens to be a fan of that movie. So is there anything would you like to like share with your idea, like Satoshi Kon take on Thoroughbred?
I feel like I've said everything that I wanted to say about it and my justification for choosing it. And Alex, I'm really glad that you were here to give the playwright's perspective.
Yeah, no, of course.
So actually, there's another like play that I wanted to dab in is from Jean Cocteau, and I really wanted to like learn up more about it so bad that I even got myself like the original French copy. Can you believe that? And
do you speak French?
I'm learning French.
That's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't. So I was like, I didn't know. Like, do you because I don't think we ever talked about it, but that's cool. I feel like given your tastes and given the sort of things that you're wanting to study, that I think it's a great idea to study French.
Yeah, I decided to adapt like one of his plays into animated film is because like my feeling toward Disney's Beauty and the Beast and how should I put it? It has a lot of things that could make it very powerful, and yet it didn't exactly do that. I mean, I could probably go on if we really want to do an episode on Jean Cocteau, but like how should I put it? Like I grew up watching the Disney's Beauty and the Beast as a kid, and as an adult, I eventually watched Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast, and most of the fun I had was like pointing out like some stuff that Disney took from, like influence from, but then and as that Cocteau movie grew on me little by little, and I watched the Disney movie again and realized how it doesn't feel the same the first time I watched it as a kid. And I feel like a lot of like very subtle poetic elements found in Cocteau movie could also do well in animation. In fact, I've seen some animated movies that does that subtle poetic mise-en-scène and sequences. But the Disney movies, I don't know, if I really have to compare, this is my hot take, and everyone will probably hate on me about this, but if I really compare Cocteau movie with the Disney movie felt like as Chris O'Donnell would put it during his experience in production of Batman and Robin, it felt like a toy commercial.
First movie, things felt much sharper and more focused, and it just felt like everything got a little softer on the second one. The first one, I felt like I was making a movie. The second one, I felt like I was making a toy commercial.
I mean, what do you think?
You're not wrong. Like, I have fond memories of watching Beauty and the Beast as a child, but a lot of these are made specifically to be adapted into Broadway shows, into toys. A lot of this has to do with the deregulation of children's television by Ronald Reagan, where, previously you kind of couldn't make IP-driven entertainment for kids. But then after the deregulation, companies would jump on making more toyetic, as it were, productions. And I mean, I say this as somebody that genuinely loves the Transformers, but the Transformers were totally made to create toys. And I say this as someone that I love the 80s movie that came out. Like that's cinema right there. That deserves a Criterion release. But let's not kid ourselves. It was created to make toys.
Another like unpopular opinion for me, and also, I mean, people nowadays call it hot take, but unpopular opinion or whatever. So I think making a merchandise out of animated movie is even more insulting than adapting animated movies into live action. Because you just retroactively turn your feature animated film into an hour-long commercial.
Well, then I feel like that you need to just have a broader discussion on capitalism and corporate greed. But I mean, I am someone that does think that it is possible for, while myself being relatively anti-capitalist, I think that unfortunately, given the state of things, you can have good entertainment that is also commercially driven. I did genuinely love the most recent Superman movie. But let's not kid ourselves. That's also a merch driver. I'm not going to refer to Superman as pure, undistilled, wonderful, non-commercial, pure driven art. I wish that we lived in a world where stuff like that could exist and create a living wage for the creators. But we don't live in that world. And I I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not above pop entertainment, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But I'm also not going to pretend that there's not a commercial driver for it as well.
I've always
and
felt
then
like
another.
I never.
Okay, yeah. Alex, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that like my personal feeling about it, like with art and capitalism, is like I never mind like a commercially driven thing as long as it's good. Like it just needs to be good, and it can be good and be commercial. But yeah, it just depends on the actual content, I guess.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Alex. Like I just tell me a good story.
Right.
You know, I don't have a lot of money. I'm probably not going to buy your merch, but I'll watch your movie if it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of capitalism, another play that I wanted to adapt was Bertolt Brecht's The Three Penny Opera, and I wanted to adapt the Bertolt Brecht stuff into animation, and I want to explore his theatrical technique in the medium and animation, which much to my surprise, there's not really much animated movies that uses his storytelling devices, and I really wonder why. And we will talk about more on that in the Dogville episode, like why not many animators take inspiration from Bertolt Brecht, or unlike live action filmmakers who took a lot of things from Brecht's artistic philosophy and pushed the mediums forward, like Jean-Luc Godard, Rainer Werner Fassbinder, and Douglas Sirk, Nagisa Oshima. They all admitted that they are very much influenced from Bertolt Brecht's approach to storytelling, and experimented with a lot of things with the medium of film, but you barely see that in animation. Well, I mean, there are animated films that unintentionally uses Brechtian storytelling, and I came across a blog post that talks about it, where Perfect Blue uses surrealism to distance yourself from whatever is going on screen, and distance from yourself from emotionally attached to characters. And that's sort of argue with it, and I don't know, I kind of disagree with it and kind of agree with it, but I could see where it is coming from. And in fact, if Perfect Blue was heavily inspired by Brian De Palma, and De Palma himself also took a lot of inspiration, well, indirectly took a lot of inspiration from Brecht, because he copied a lot of things from Jean-Luc Godard and his approach to storytelling and mixing up with the social satire and all.
So what you're telling me is I need to do
Alex, what do you think?
much more deep dive into Brecht.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Alex. I'm not sure if you have ever read anything from Brecht.
Not so.
What do you think?
I've not read anything directly from Brecht. Yeah, most of my experience with theater, like I studied engineering in school, so a lot of my theater has been like seeing contemporary shows. So yeah, I'm much more knowledgeable about like what's going on right now than like the classical understanding of theater, I'd say.
Okay. So, like I said about my take on Titus Andronicus, this is like my, based on what I've researched, and this is like my just challenging myself, trying to bring Brechtian element into animation by not going conventional.
If anyone can do that, it's you.
But yeah, and then my take on Jean Cocteau will be the closest thing for trying to do more mainstream, Disney-esque. However, it is very much my own spin. It's like, imagine Disney animated musical without music. I mean, it tries to be musical, but then it kind of stops it. But I don't know. Well, not in the sense that the characters are self-aware. It's like you as your audience sort of get that vibe. Like if for whatever reasons it is refusing to be musical. But anyway, but I could elaborate more on that in Dogville episode. So yeah, if we are gonna do this episode again with you, Meredith, there's like I would say like a 2 regular episodes. One is like a request from someone who was also on the show before, and the another one is, like I mentioned, also a series finale. It's Dogville. We're gonna do an episode on Dogville, and another one is we're gonna do also a Halloween episode on Tarzan Sick The Cell.
That's gonna be a fun one.
The reason why I started this podcast is to create a community where we exchange movies together and actually show people who are skeptical of animation some different perspective, and also people who are also skeptical of live action movies some different perspective as well.
But I hope this I hope this episode also gets people enthused about theater. I think the world needs live action movies, it needs animation, and it needs theater. We need all three.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I wanted to be like that podcast episode where I heard that there's a podcast episode where 2 people, one who likes musical and one who hates musical, kind of talks about musical itself, and it's sort of made for people who like musical and who are skeptical of musical as a genre, and to be honest, I really don't get people who hate musical and turn that into their own identity.
I know
turn that into their whole personality.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it. Like I look, okay, I'm not a huge fan of musical, but I do like it if it's good.
It's musical splaining. That's
That's
the name of it.
Funny because I never listened to any of the episodes. I just heard the premise of like maybe I could make something like that. And that's like one of my inspirations for this podcast.
It's Lindsay Ellis's podcast.
He hosted that. She hosted that podcast for a while.
But musical splaining is actually very interesting because I love musicals, but I'm also very picky about musicals. So that was a fun one that got me really interested in learning about some ones that I might really like. I learned about The Six, I think, from that which I ended up going to see The Six, and I loved it. Loved The Six. So yeah. I recommend musical splaining. I think it straddles a good line between people that are not fans and people that are fans, and it'll hopefully make you think about the medium. It's not a genre; it's a medium, and maybe find some stuff that you would like, but also consider the fact that even if you are like the biggest musical buff on the planet, some of it is actually really bad.
Yeah.
Like Carrie the musical, or at least the first version. Yeah, that's an interesting story in of itself.
And I mean, I'll go on
Anyway,
record. I know that people are gonna hate me for saying this, but I don't care. I don't like Dear Evan Hansen.
I haven't seen
even
it.
the stage musical.
Do what?
Even the stage musical.
I don't like
Just
Dear Evan
wondering.
Hansen. Period. I don't like the story.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen movies that done that story better, and it's called The World's Greatest Dad with Robin Williams.
I appreciate that it exists and that people like it and respond to it, but I don't like it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I also wanted to explore that mentality. I was like, I also heard that horror is not a genre; it's a feeling, and I was like, okay, when is a genre is not a genre, or when is genre stop being a genre? I would like to explore that mentality. Why nobody likes the word genre?
That's awesome though, because whenever people ask me what my favorite horror movie is, or what I find the scariest horror movie, is that I say Eraserhead, which most people don't conventionally file under a horror movie, but to me it is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen.
Broadly speaking, yes. I mean, it's more like surreal horror, and you know what? That's fine. I
have nightmares about Eraserhead.
Actually, Yeah, surrealism is what made the Perfect Blue work, and a lot of like a very like postmodern avant-garde theater also worked.
I would say that it's more thriller than horror.
I like. Oh, you mean the Perfect Blue?
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Which is strange because the original book that anime was based on was more something in more of a slasher movie, like more like a slasher horror. Like, it doesn't have the twist that Rumi had the split personality and was a orchestrated everything. The Rumi, the manager, it's just a pop idol, and she's being stalked by a Jason Voorhees like killer. That's the original book was about. Or at least someone sort of.
That sounds like it could still be entertaining. Because like I've read traditional slasher books by like Grady Hendrix. Guy's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like Satoshi Kon added some depth into it, like for like the art of performance and the pressures they receive, and a genuine concerning issue involving stalking and the how should I put it, the very like fanaticism regarding like celebrity culture.
Yeah.
So he added a lot of depth into a straightforward pulp novel.
And a classic was born.
That's fine. Right. So, and he also used the medium of animation to add those layers together, which is nice. And I feel like, look, I know, people just want straightforward popcorn animated movies like Disney used to make during the 90s, but I really wish that people should just push the medium forward.
Like I said, I think there's room for both.
Right. So, is anyone here tired? Just wondering. Just checking.
I'm about to go make some tacos.
Nice.
Yes. All right. So I'm gonna wrap this up. So, Alex, thank you for joining with us, and thank you, Meredith, for finally,
Sorry.
Coming. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm a journalist during the rise of fascism in the United States. It's not an easy time to have time right now.
Oh, geez, you're a journalist.
Yeah, I really hope that
I am. Yeah. I'm a journalist and an actress.
I hope that. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm both.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry. No, I'm both a journalist and an actress. So, cool. But I'm here from the perspective of an actress.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, I really wanted this podcast to be more, lighthearted and just, few people just come together and talk about movies and not thinking much about what's going on out the world, which is strange because the last podcast was very politically heavy because it was about, Marquis de Sade and the siege of the Bastille.
I mean, I'd like to apologize.
Yeah, it's a long story.
I'd like to apologize to you, at least publicly, for, I know that I committed to being the co-host to this, but then we also didn't foresee everything coming. So I had to take a step back for my mental health and my schedule because I did not know that my job was going to get 10 times harder at the time when I committed.
Anyway, so thank you for having you all, and the next one we'll have a guest from Iran, of all places.
No, that's awesome. I would love to hear that. Is it are you allowed to talk about what the movie and everything is going to be yet?
So we're going to talk about Sky Captain and the World tomorrow, but so look forward to that, and thank you all for listening, and nice to meet you all, and take care, and have a great afternoon.